They mocked his mail-order rifle until he killed 20 Japanese snipers in one day. At 6:14 on the morning of the 23rd of November, 1943, Corporal Jack Mitchell crouched in a camouflaged hide on Bougainville Island in the Solomon Islands, watching through his rifle scope as a Japanese sniper adjusted position 380 yards distant in a banyan tree. Mitchell had been tracking this particular sniper for 11 hours, ever since the man had killed Lieutenant David Morrison at dawn the previous day with a single shot through the throat. The Japanese sniper was skilled, disciplined, and equipped with a scoped Arisaka Type 97 rifle that made him effectively invisible to standard American infantry. Mitchell had exactly one advantage: a civilian hunting rifle he'd purchased from a Sears Roebuck catalog in 1941, a weapon his fellow Marines had mocked relentlessly as a mail-order toy, unsuitable for combat. In approximately 40 seconds, he was going to demonstrate exactly how wrong they'd been, in a way that would either validate 2 years of ridicule or confirm he was the fool everyone said he was. This moment mattered because American forces in the Pacific were being systematically killed by Japanese snipers at rates that threatened operational effectiveness. The Japanese had developed counter-sniper tactics into a sophisticated military specialty. Highly trained marksmen equipped with quality optics, operating from concealed positions, eliminating American officers and NCOs with precision that degraded unit cohesion and morale. American Doctrine had no effective counter. Standard issue M1 Garand rifles were excellent combat weapons, but lacked the accuracy for precision counter-sniper work beyond 300 yards. The few Springfield rifles available were iron-sighted military surplus without the optical precision needed for long-range dueling. The official solution was to call in artillery or air support, but that required identifying the sniper's exact position, which usually happened only after several Americans were already dead. Mitchell had proposed a different solution 2 years earlier: authorize Marines with civilian hunting experience to bring their own precision rifles. Privately owned weapons with quality optics, custom triggers, hand-loaded ammunition optimized for accuracy rather than volume. His company commander had rejected the proposal instantly, citing regulations that specified standard issue weapons only, concerns about ammunition compatibility, and the fundamental military principle that soldiers fought with what they were issued, not what they preferred. Mitchell had been explicitly ordered to leave his civilian rifle in storage and rely on standard Marine Corps equipment like everyone else. He'd ignored that order completely, smuggled his Remington Model 30 Express aboard ship hidden in his sea bag, and spent 2 years waiting for the moment when being right mattered more than following regulations. The Japanese sniper in the banyan tree, 380 yards distant, represented that moment. Mitchell controlled his breathing, settled the crosshairs on the barely visible shape among the leaves, and prepared to prove that sometimes the best military weapon was one the military never issued: the Montana hunter who understood precision. Jack Mitchell grew up in the Bitterroot Mountains outside Missoula, Montana, where his father guided elk and deer hunts for wealthy clients from back east. By the time Mitchell was 14, he was his father's primary assistant guide, which meant he spent weeks in the backcountry teaching lawyers and businessmen how to shoot accurately at distances where most people couldn't even see their targets clearly. His father had taught him something fundamental about precision shooting. Equipment mattered enormously, but only if you understood what you were optimizing for. A military rifle was designed for reliability under terrible conditions, reasonable accuracy at combat ranges, and compatibility with mass-produced ammunition. A hunting rifle was designed for maximum accuracy at one specific range with one specific ammunition load, accepting reduced reliability and increased maintenance requirements as acceptable trade-offs. The two designs served completely different purposes, and trying to use one for the other's job was like using a sledgehammer for watchmaking. Mitchell's personal rifle reflected that understanding. He'd purchased a Remington Model 30 Express in 1941, a civilian hunting rifle based on the military pattern, 1914 Enfield action, but optimized for accuracy rather than battlefield durability. He'd added a Lyman Alaskan 2.5 times scope with fine crosshairs, calibrated for his specific hand-loaded ammunition. 150 grain boat-tail bullets in front of 48 grains of IMR 4350 powder, producing consistent velocities within 15 feet per second across 20 rounds. At 300 yards with that load, the rifle would group 5 shots inside a 3-inch circle on a calm day, which meant he could reliably hit a man-sized target's vital zone at ranges where most soldiers couldn't even see clearly. He'd brought that rifle when he enlisted in the Marines in 1942, thinking the Corps would appreciate having a trained precision shooter with his own optimized equipment. Instead, he'd encountered regulations, standardization requirements, and an institutional assumption that civilian equipment was inherently inferior to military issue regardless of actual performance characteristics. During training at Camp Pendleton, his drill instructor had picked up Mitchell's Remington, examined it with obvious disdain, and announced to the entire platoon, "Mitchell here thinks he's too good for Marine Corps equipment, wants to fight the Japs with a toy he ordered from a catalog. We'll see how long that lasts when shit gets real." The mockery had continued for 2 years. Mail order Marine, Sears Sniper, Catalog Cowboy. Mitchell endured it quietly, maintained his rifle obsessively, and waited for the war to provide the inevitable moment when precision at distance would matter more than fitting in with institutional expectations. The pattern that kept killing leaders. The deaths started on the 7th of November, 1943, 3 days after Mitchell's unit landed on Bougainville as part of the initial invasion force. Captain Robert Chen, 28 years old from San Francisco, was coordinating a platoon movement when a single shot struck him in the chest from an estimated 400 yards. He died before the corpsman reached him. The sniper's position was never located, despite extensive searching. On the 12th of November, First Lieutenant Thomas Webb from Atlanta was directing mortar fire when another precision shot killed him instantly. Headshot from approximately 350 yards. Again, the sniper was never found. On the 15th of November, 3 separate American officers were killed by long-range precision fire in a single day, all from different locations, suggesting multiple Japanese snipers operating with coordinated timing. By the 20th of November, the battalion had lost 11 officers and senior NCOs to sniper fire, and the pattern was destroying unit effectiveness. Junior officers became hesitant to move openly or use binoculars. The optical glint made them instant targets. NCOs stopped giving orders loudly enough to be heard clearly. Radio operators painted over the distinctive antennas that marked them as high-value targets. The entire command structure was degrading, not from casualties that prevented the unit from functioning, but from selective targeting that made leadership itself lethally dangerous. Mitchell had watched Lieutenant Morrison die on the 22nd, shot through the throat while trying to coordinate a patrol. Morrison had been a good officer, careful and competent, but he'd stood upright for perhaps 5 seconds while pointing toward an objective, and a Japanese sniper 400 yards away had killed him in that brief window. The sniper had fired once, extracted perfectly, and disappeared before anyone could even identify his firing position. The tactical math was brutally simple. Japanese snipers were operating at ranges between 300 and 500 yards, using quality optics and precision rifles to eliminate American leadership selectively. American counter-sniper capability was essentially zero at those ranges. The M1 Garand's effective range for precision work was roughly 300 yards. And without optics, American shooters couldn't even see targets clearly beyond that distance. The Japanese could kill with impunity from ranges where Americans couldn't effectively return fire. Mitchell had started tracking sniper locations, marking each incident on his map, analyzing patterns. He identified at least 4 separate Japanese snipers working the sector, each with distinct operating patterns and preferred shooting positions. He knew where they'd likely position next based on American movement patterns. He had the equipment and skills to engage them at their preferred ranges. All he needed was permission to actually use his civilian rifle instead of the standard issue M1 Garand that was 30% less accurate at the ranges where this war was being fought, when command said absolutely not. On the 21st of November, Mitchell requested a meeting with Major William Bradford, the battalion executive officer. He brought his Remington rifle, his hand-loaded ammunition, and a specific tactical proposal. Authorize him to operate as a dedicated counter-sniper using his civilian precision rifle. Targeting the Japanese snipers who were systematically eliminating American leadership. Bradford examined the rifle with the expression officers reserve for enlisted men who've brought something inappropriate to official attention. "Corporal, this is a civilian hunting rifle. Yes, sir. Specifically optimized for precision shooting at ranges between 200 and 500 yards, which matches the engagement distances where Japanese snipers are operating. We issue perfectly adequate rifles to every Marine corporal. The M1 Garand is the finest combat rifle in the world. For combat at typical engagement ranges, yes, sir. But for precision counter-sniper work beyond 300 yards, a scoped bolt-action rifle with hand-loaded ammunition provides significantly better accuracy. Bradford's expression hardened. Corporal, we fight with standard equipment for very good reasons. Ammunition compatibility, parts interchangeability, maintenance standardization. Your proposal would require special ammunition that no one else can use, create maintenance problems for a weapon our armorers aren't trained on, and establish a precedent that Marines can just bring whatever civilian gear they prefer. Sir, we've lost 11 leaders to sniper fire in 2 weeks. The Japanese are killing us from ranges where we can't effectively return fire with standard equipment. We return fire with artillery and air support, Corporal. That's Doctrine. We don't need individual Marines playing cowboy with hunting rifles. Bradford stood up. You're dismissed. And Corporal, I want that civilian rifle turned in to supply. You'll use your issued weapon like every other Marine in this battalion. That's an order. The rejection was absolute. Bradford had made it explicitly clear. Using the Remington was forbidden, and any attempt to do so would be considered disobedience of a direct order. Mitchell saluted, left the tent, and made a decision that would either end his military career or save American lives. He'd keep the Remington hidden but ready, and the next time a Japanese sniper killed someone Mitchell could have stopped, he'd use the equipment that worked regardless of what regulations said. Lieutenant Morrison died the next morning. That made the decision easy. Building the counter-sniper position. Mitchell started preparing his hide at 2300 hours on the 22nd of November, working in complete darkness at a position he'd scouted 3 days earlier. The location was a natural depression on a ridgeline overlooking the valley where Japanese snipers had operated consistently, offering clear sightlines to their likely positions while providing excellent concealment from observation. He constructed the hide using techniques his father had taught him for elk hunting, creating a shooting position that blended perfectly with natural terrain. He piled dead logs to create a natural-looking windfall, wove fresh vegetation through the gaps to break up any regular patterns, and created a tiny firing port barely 6 inches wide that would be invisible from more than 20 yards distant. Inside, he dug a shallow trench, allowing him to lie prone with the Remington rested on a packed dirt mound that provided stable support. The rifle preparation was meticulous. He cleaned the barrel obsessively, removing every trace of moisture and oil that might affect accuracy. He loaded 20 rounds of his hand-loaded ammunition, checking each cartridge for proper seating depth and any signs of corrosion. He verified the scope's zero using a makeshift target at exactly 100 yards, confirming his point of impact matched his calculations. The Lyman scope's adjustments were calibrated in minutes of angle. Each click moved impact roughly 1 inch at 100 yards, 3 inches at 300, 4 inches at 400. At the distances he expected to engage, that precision mattered enormously. He positioned himself in the hide at 0400 hours on the 23rd, 2 hours before dawn, giving his eyes time to fully adapt to darkness and his body time to settle into absolute stillness. The November night was cold, roughly 58 degrees, which meant his first shot would be from a cold barrel, affecting velocity slightly. He'd calculated the correction. At 300 yards, cold barrel shots impacted roughly 1 inch high compared to warm barrel groups. At 400 yards, roughly 1.5 inches. He filed that information away for the critical first shot. As dawn broke at 0600, he began systematically glassing every position where Japanese snipers had previously operated, looking for the tiny inconsistencies that revealed human presence, unnatural shadows, movement that didn't match wind patterns, optical glint from scope lenses. His breathing was controlled, his heartbeat calm. His mind settled into the patient hunter state his father had called becoming part of the mountain. At 0614, he spotted movement in a banyan tree 380 yards northwest, a careful adjustment to shadows that shouldn't move. He watched for 40 seconds, waiting for confirmation. Then the Japanese sniper shifted slightly, and Mitchell saw the unmistakable outline of a scoped rifle and a human shoulder. He settled the Remington's crosshairs on the visible mass, compensated for the cold barrel impact shift, exhaled halfway, and squeezed the trigger exactly as his father had taught him 20 years earlier. 380 yards to vindication. The Remington's report was sharp and clean, completely different from the M1 Garand's bark that every Marine in the battalion would recognize. The bullet left the muzzle at 2,700 feet per second, covered 380 yards in roughly 4/10 of a second, and struck the Japanese sniper precisely where Mitchell had aimed, center mass on the visible torso. Through the scope, Mitchell saw the impact, the sniper's body jerking, the rifle falling from the tree, the man following it a moment later, tumbling through branches before hitting ground. There was no doubt about the result. The threat was eliminated. Mitchell cycled the bolt smoothly, ejecting the spent case and chambering a fresh round, then swept his scope across other likely positions. Japanese snipers often worked in pairs, with one shooter and one spotter who'd become the backup shooter if the primary was eliminated. Sure enough, approximately 60 yards from the first position, another shape moved, the spotter, breaking concealment to flee after watching his partner die. Mitchell led the movement, compensated for the target's running speed, and fired. The second Japanese soldier dropped immediately. 2 shots, 2 confirmed eliminations, both at ranges where standard Marine Corps equipment would have been marginally effective at best. He stayed in position, scanning for additional targets. Over the next 4 hours, he identified and engaged 3 more Japanese snipers at ranges between 320 and 460 yards. 5 shots fired, 5 confirmed kills, all precision engagements at distances where the Remington's accuracy advantage was decisive. By 1100 hours, he'd expanded his pattern, relocating to 3 different positions across the ridgeline, engaging Japanese snipers wherever they revealed themselves. The enemy was clearly confused. American counterfire was coming from unexpected ranges and angles, killing with precision that didn't match their experience of American marksmanship. By 1400 hours, Mitchell had fired 18 shots and confirmed 15 kills, all Japanese snipers or observers operating in counter-American leadership roles. The final engagement came at 1620. A Japanese sniper team had positioned in a destroyed bunker 480 yards distant, extreme range, complicated by heat shimmer and wind. Mitchell calculated the corrections, steadied his breathing, and fired. The bullet struck perfectly, eliminating the sniper. His spotter returned fire wildly, unable to locate Mitchell's position. Mitchell's second shot ended that threat. 20 rounds fired, 17 confirmed Japanese snipers killed, 3 shots that missed or hit unconfirmed targets, an 85% hit rate at distances averaging 390 yards, using a mail-order toy that Doctrine said had no place in military operations. Mitchell field-stripped the Remington completely, hid the components in 3 separate locations, and returned to his unit, carrying only his issued M1 Garand. No one could prove he'd violated orders if the evidence didn't exist. Questions that had convenient answers. Major Bradford arrived at Mitchell's position at 1800 hours, accompanied by the battalion intelligence officer and 2 other officers. They'd spent the day trying to understand why Japanese sniper activity had suddenly and completely ceased, and why battalion patrols had found 17 dead Japanese snipers in a single sector, all killed by precision rifle fire from ranges the Americans weren't supposed to be capable of achieving. Bradford stared at Mitchell with an expression mixing suspicion, confusion, and something that might have been grudging respect. "Corporal Mitchell, I'm told you were operating in this sector all day." "Yes, sir. Observation duties, per assignment roster." "Did you observe anything unusual? Any American sniper activity, perhaps?" "I observed significant reduction in Japanese sniper effectiveness, sir. They appeared to be taking casualties from unknown sources." The intelligence officer intervened. "Corporal, we've recovered several Japanese bodies. They were all killed by .30 caliber rifle fire, precision shots at extended ranges. The ballistics don't quite match standard M1 Garand characteristics." Mitchell kept his expression neutral. "I wouldn't know much about ballistics, sir. I just follow orders and observe enemy activity." Bradford walked around Mitchell slowly, looking for evidence. "Where's your personal rifle, Corporal? The Remington you brought from the States?" "In storage, sir. Per your orders, I turned it in and use only my issued M1 Garand." "Which is currently where?" "In my tent, sir. I wasn't engaged in combat operations today, just observation, so I didn't see the need to carry it on static position." Bradford knew he was lying. Mitchell knew Bradford knew. But without physical evidence, without actually finding the disassembled Remington hidden in 3 separate locations across 200 yards of jungle, Bradford couldn't prove anything. And more importantly, 17 dead Japanese snipers represented a tactical victory Bradford desperately needed and couldn't afford to invalidate by court-martialing the Marine who'd achieved it. After a long silence, Bradford said, "Corporal, I want you to understand something. This battalion cannot have Marines operating outside the chain of command using unauthorized equipment, regardless of results. That way lies chaos and breakdown of discipline." "I understand completely, sir. However, this battalion can have Marines with specialized observation skills, providing valuable intelligence that leads to favorable outcomes. Do you understand the distinction I'm making?" "Perfectly, sir." "Good. Continue your observation duties, Corporal. And if your observations happen to coincide with continued reduction in enemy sniper effectiveness, well, that would be excellent intelligence to report." Bradford turned to leave, then stopped. "One more thing, Corporal. If any Marines in this battalion happen to have specialized marksmanship skills and personal equipment that might enhance their observation capabilities, I'd appreciate being informally aware of such resources, strictly for intelligence purposes, you understand." "I'll keep that in mind, sir." Bradford left. Mitchell had just been given unofficial authorization to continue doing exactly what he'd been ordered not to do, as long as everyone could pretend it wasn't happening. The method goes viral. Word spread through the battalion within 24 hours, carried by Marines who'd watched Japanese sniper activity suddenly cease after months of steady casualties. By the 26th of November, 3 other Marines approached Mitchell quietly. All hunters before the war, all carrying civilian rifles they'd smuggled overseas against regulations, all waiting for permission that would never officially come. Mitchell trained them in his father's techniques: hide construction, range estimation, wind reading, cold barrel compensation. By the 30th of November, 4 separate precision shooter teams were operating across the battalion's sector, all using civilian hunting rifles, all officially non-existent, all devastatingly effective. The statistical impact was immediate and dramatic. In the 3 weeks before Mitchell's unauthorized counter-sniper campaign, the battalion lost 11 officers and senior NCOs to Japanese sniper fire. In the 3 weeks after the civilian rifle teams began operating, the battalion lost 0 leaders to snipers. Japanese counter-leadership targeting simply stopped working. Every time a Japanese sniper revealed position to engage an American officer, they died within minutes from precision. Counter-fire they couldn't locate or evade. Japanese intelligence reports, captured later, noted that American marksmanship had inexplicably improved and that traditional sniper tactics were becoming suicidal in certain sectors. Some Japanese units began refusing sniper assignments entirely, considering the casualty rates unacceptable. By January 1944, the practice had spread informally across 3 Marine divisions in the Pacific. Roughly 30 Marines were operating as unauthorized precision shooters using civilian rifles, collectively accounting for an estimated 180 confirmed Japanese sniper eliminations with near-zero American counter-casualties. The method had become a shadow doctrine, never acknowledged officially, never documented formally, but quietly endorsed by commanders who understood that winning mattered more than regulations. The recognition that couldn't exist. On the 14th of January 1944, Colonel James Morrison, regimental commander, summoned Mitchell to headquarters. Mitchell assumed he was finally being court-martialed for the months of regulatory violations. Instead, Morrison got straight to business. "Corporal Mitchell, your unauthorized precision shooting operation has eliminated roughly 47 Japanese snipers over the past 2 months using equipment you were explicitly ordered not to use. This presents me with an interesting problem." "Yes, sir." "I can't officially commend you, because that would require acknowledging you've been systematically violating orders for months. I can't promote you because explaining why would create documentation of activities I'm supposed to be preventing. I can't award you a medal because the citation would have to explain how you earned it, which would require admitting we have Marines operating outside Doctrine." "I understand, sir. What I can do, Corporal, is create a new position, Regimental Marksmanship Instructor. Your official job will be teaching Marines proper fundamentals of rifle shooting using standard equipment. Your actual job will be quietly identifying Marines with precision shooting backgrounds, coordinating their specialized observation activities, and ensuring their personal equipment is properly maintained. Nothing official, nothing documented. Just making sure we continue experiencing this remarkable decline in enemy sniper effectiveness. Morrison paused. You'll receive no official recognition for saving dozens of American lives. Your innovations won't appear in any manual. Your name won't appear in any after-action reports. But you'll know, and I'll know, that you refuse to let bad doctrine get good Marines killed. That's worth more than any medal I could give you anyway. That's more than enough, sir. Good. Report to S3 in the morning. And Corporal, keep not using unauthorized equipment. You're extremely effective at not doing things you're not authorized to do. The hunter who went home. Jack Mitchell served as regimental marksmanship instructor through the end of the war, training 238 Marines in precision shooting techniques, while officially never acknowledging that any of them used civilian rifles for combat operations. He personally accounted for at least 89 confirmed Japanese sniper eliminations using his mail-order toy from Sears Roebuck, making him one of the most effective snipers in the Pacific Theater, despite never officially being designated a sniper. He received no medals for his counter-sniper work. His official service record shows he served as a marksmanship instructor and was honorably discharged in October 1945 with the rank of sergeant. The Remington Model 30 that killed 89 enemy soldiers was never officially recorded as combat equipment, never appeared in any after-action report, never existed in military documentation. After the war, Mitchell returned to Montana and worked as a hunting guide like his father, using the same Remington rifle he'd carried through the Pacific. He died in 1998 at age 77, having spent 53 years guiding hunters and 3 years fighting a war. The Montana Historical Society has his rifle on display with a small placard noting it was carried during World War II service, with no mention of how many enemy soldiers it killed or how many American lives it saved. The Marine Corps officially adopted dedicated sniper programs with precision rifles and quality optics in 1956, 13 years after Mitchell proved they worked. The official doctrine credited various officers and training developments, with no mention of the Montana corporal who'd smuggled a civilian hunting rifle into combat against explicit orders. The real lesson wasn't about rifles or marksmanship, it was about the gap between institutional doctrine and battlefield reality, and the uncomfortable truth that sometimes the best solution already exists in some corporal's sea bag, waiting for someone willing to risk court-martial for being right. Mitchell understood something the Marine Corps bureaucracy couldn't accept, that civilian hunters who'd spent lifetimes pursuing elk at 400 yards in Montana mountains might know more about precision shooting than officers who'd learned from manuals written by people who'd never actually hunted anything. He'd grown up shooting game for his father's clients, learning that successful hunting required exactly the right equipment, optimized for exactly the right purpose. He'd approached war the same way. Ignore the adequate general-purpose equipment the institution provided, use the optimal specialized equipment the problem actually required, and accept that being effective mattered more than being regulation compliant. The fact that the Marine Corps took 13 years to officially learn what Montana hunters already knew said more about institutions than it did about shooting. He went back to Montana after all that, guided hunters through the same mountains his father had worked, and used the same mail-order toy that officers had mocked and 89 Japanese soldiers had died to. The rifle still shot 3-inch groups at 300 yards, still killed elk cleanly at distances where iron.